He said it so easily, like spitting out a piece of bad fruit. "You're a disgrace to this family." The whole dining room went silent. Forks froze mid-air, eyes turned to me, and for a second, I forgot how to breathe. My own brother, Ethan, the one my parents worshipped, the one who always got his way, had just torn me apart in front of everyone I loved. I smiled, pretending his words didn't cut deeper than any knife could. My mother looked away, pretending not to hear. My father just sighed, like my humiliation was something normal, something expected from me. All I did was tell the truth, and in our house, truth was the worst kind of disrespect. I remember staring at my reflection in the silver platter, my face burning, my heart breaking. I wanted to scream, to run, to vanish. But I stayed still, silent, because that's what a respectful daughter was supposed to do. That night, I swore to myself, the next time Ethan tried to destroy me, he wouldn't see tears in my eyes. He'd see his own downfall staring back at him. People always said the Wells family was perfect, a model of unity, grace, and respect. To outsiders, we were the family that smiled through everything. Sunday dinners, church gatherings, charity galas, we showed up looking like a portrait of harmony. But behind those polished smiles, I always felt like the extra brushstroke no one asked for. My brother Ethan was the golden child, confident, successful, loud in all the right ways. My parents adored him. My mother, Margaret, would say things like, "Ethan has leadership in his blood," while turning to me with that half-smile that meant, "Try to be more like him." I used to laugh it off, pretending it didn't sting. But every praise for him felt like a quiet reminder that I was never enough. Our father, Thomas, wasn't cruel, just absent in spirit. He believed peace was more important than fairness. "Don't start drama, Amara," he'd say whenever Ethan cut me off mid-sentence or mocked my choices. Peace, to him, meant silence. I tried, God knows I tried, to fit in, to earn a place at that dining table where respect was served only to those who conformed. I went to college, worked hard, even got a corporate job that paid well. But it never felt like me. I loved art, painting, sketching, turning emotions into colors. When I finally left my job to pursue it full-time, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud of my courage. Instead, Ethan laughed. "You're chasing fantasies again, little sister," he said, swirling his wine. "Not everyone can afford to live in their feelings." Mother joined in, not with laughter, but with that sharp tone that sliced right through me. "Amara, in this family, reputation feeds respect. Remember that before you ruin yours." So, I stayed quiet, painted in secret, smiled through the cracks. Even Grandma Elsie, our family matriarch, used to say, "A woman's pride is her family's reflection." I carried those words like a curse. Every decision I made, every word I spoke, I weighed against how it might look to others. But no matter what I did, I was always the fragile one, the one who didn't fit into the Wells' perfect picture. Then one evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, I noticed a torn envelope tucked under a stack of bills. My name wasn't on it, Ethan's was. The corner of the paper revealed the first few words, "Confidential, legal notice." I froze. My mother's voice echoed from the kitchen, calling my name, but I couldn't hear anything else. My pulse quickened, a strange unease washing over me. I slipped the envelope into my apron pocket, pretending not to see it. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Something ugly hid beneath all that perfect family shine. And that night, when I caught Ethan whispering on the phone, his voice sharp and desperate, I realized the cracks in our family's mirror were about to split wide open. It began with a whisper, one that crawled through our house like smoke. Ethan's firm had financial discrepancies. That's what my father called it when the first phone call came. My mother, of course, brushed it off. "Someone's jealous of Ethan's success," she said, rolling her eyes. But I noticed how her hand trembled when she hung up. A week later, the whispers turned into murmurs. Then, the murmurs became accusations. Ethan's company claimed that money was missing from a client account, thousands of dollars. And somehow, my name appeared on one of the authorization slips. When I heard, I couldn't even speak. I'd left that world months ago. I hadn't touched a single document from his office. But my mother's face said it all. She believed him before I could even open my mouth. "Amara, tell me you didn't," she whispered, not in anger, but in disappointment. That hurt more than if she'd screamed. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. I didn't.
You know I didn't.
Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm, too calm. Maybe you didn't mean to, Mara. Maybe you were just careless.
Careless. That's what he always called me.
When I forgot to lock the back door as a child, when I burned the casserole at 15, when I told the truth about his lies. Mother clasped his arm, as if he were the victim. We'll fix this, Ethan. We always do. I felt invisible again. A ghost standing in her own house. You're not even going to ask how my name ended up there.
Ethan's lips curled.
You were the last one with access to my files before you quit.
You probably left something open. It's fine, we'll handle it.
But it wasn't fine. His voice carried pity, the kind you give to someone you've already decided is guilty.
From that day, the air in our home changed.
Every look held suspicion.
My father avoided my eyes.
Grandma Elsie refused to speak to me at Sunday lunch, muttering about shameful daughters. Even Nora, Ethan's fiancée, started avoiding me. At night, I sat in my room staring at the envelope I'd found, the confidential, legal notice.
I hadn't told anyone about it yet.
But a thought began to grow, dark and persistent. What if this isn't just a mistake? What if Ethan used me? The next day, Clara, my best friend, dropped by. I told her everything, voice shaking. She didn't flinch.
Something's off, she said. You said you found an envelope? Bring it.
Inside were letters from Ethan's firm, warnings, payment demands, legal threats.
All dated before my name ever appeared. He'd been in trouble for months. And now, somehow, I was part of it. That night, I confronted him. He was in the living room, sipping whiskey like nothing had happened.
Ethan, I said quietly, why is my name on those forms?
He smirked without looking up.
You think I'd risk my career over your little conspiracy theories?
My voice trembled, but I didn't back down. I saw the letters.
You've been hiding this for months. He finally turned, his expression shifting from mockery to menace. Careful, Amara. You don't know what you're getting into. Then explain it to me, I shot back. Because if I go down for this, I'll take everything you've buried with me. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, he leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. You always wanted attention, didn't you? Now you've got it.
I stepped back, my chest tightening. I could feel my pulse in my ears.
That night, my mother announced at dinner that Ethan was being unfairly targeted, and that we needed to protect the family's name. And just like that, I became the villain. The humiliation was complete.
My father refused to speak to me. Grandma called me a disgrace. And Ethan?
He sat at the head of the table, smirking.
But as I looked at him that night, something inside me hardened.
I realized he wasn't just trying to save himself, he was using me as his shield.
He thought I'd stay silent. He had no idea what I was about to uncover.
From that day on, I became the family's cautionary tale, the silent warning of what happens when you disappoint the Wells name.
It started small.
A quiet whisper when I entered the room. A conversation that stopped mid-sentence. My mother began introducing me to guests as our sensitive daughter, going through a rough phase. Ethan played the doting brother in public, pretending to comfort me with false pity while tightening the noose behind the scenes. The first public humiliation came at Grandma Elsie's birthday dinner. The whole family was there, relatives from out of state, old friends, even Ethan's boss. I'd spent the afternoon decorating the garden, arranging flowers just the way Grandma liked. When dinner began, Ethan clinked his glass and said, Before we start, I just want to thank everyone for standing by me during these unfortunate misunderstandings.
All eyes turned to me.
He smiled, sweet as poison. It's been tough, especially with some internal confusion in our family's records.
But we're past that now. A few people chuckled. My mother forced a smile. My throat closed.
I wanted to scream that he forged my signature, that he used me. But I couldn't. My father's eyes warned me, don't make a scene. So, I sat there, smiling through tears, as Ethan toasted his own lies. Later that night, Clara called me after seeing a social post from the dinner. The caption read, Family always forgives. Some things are best left unsaid.
She was furious.
He's turning your pain into a show, Amara. I know, I whispered, staring at my reflection in the dark window. And they are all watching it. The weeks that followed were unbearable. I stopped going to family events, but that didn't stop the rumors.
Neighbors began whispering that I'd been fired for fraud. Even the local charity I volunteered with stopped returning my calls. At home, Ethan grew bolder. He'd drop snide remarks at every opportunity.
"You should thank me," he'd say. "At least I didn't let the world know what a mess you really are."
Mother believed every word he said.
"You've caused enough embarrassment," she snapped one evening. "If you can't fix your name, at least stay out of the way." Her words cut deeper than his lies. One afternoon, I gathered the courage to visit Grandma Elsie, hoping she might believe me. She sat in her rocking chair, eyes clouded with disappointment. "A woman's respect is fragile, Amara," she murmured. "Once it's gone, no truth can restore it." I wanted to shout, but I'm innocent. Instead, I knelt beside her, my tears soaking her frail hands. "Grandma, please. I didn't do it."
She didn't answer, just turned her face away.
That night, as I packed my things, I found a new envelope slipped under my door, this time, addressed to me. Inside were photocopies of legal documents, all with my name forged on them.
Transfers, signatures, dates.
Every piece linked to Ethan's stolen funds. I sat on the floor, shaking, staring at the evidence.
He'd set me up completely. The walls of my room seemed to close in.
I could hear Ethan's laughter downstairs, loud and confident, as if he'd already won.
For the first time, anger drowned out my tears.
It wasn't sadness anymore, it was something colder, sharper. A storm that had been quietly waiting to rise. I wiped my eyes, folded the papers, and whispered to myself, if truth can destroy a family, then maybe it deserves to burn. As I turned off the light, my phone buzzed, a message from Clara.
"You need to see what I just found. It's about Ethan.
Call me now."
I froze. My pulse quickened.
Whatever she'd discovered,
I knew it was going to change everything.
The day it all fell apart began like any other, calm, deceptive, pretending to be ordinary. I woke to the smell of coffee and the faint sound of my mother humming in the kitchen, like the world hadn't already turned its back on me. For a moment, I almost believed things were healing. But peace, in our family, was never real.
It was just silence before the storm.
That evening, Ethan and Nora's engagement party was held at the city ballroom, a grand, glittering event with guests from every corner of our social circle. I didn't even plan to go, but Mother insisted. "If you care about this family at all, you'll show up, smile, and behave," she ordered, handing me a pale blue dress she'd picked out herself.
It wasn't a request. It was a command. So I went.
The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and laughter. Ethan stood at the center, perfect as ever, tailored suit, polished charm, fake humility. People swarmed him, offering congratulations, praising his integrity through hardship. Every word twisted like a knife. I stayed near the back, quiet, watching. Clara was supposed to meet me there later. She'd been gathering more evidence from the files we'd found.
But she hadn't arrived yet. Then Ethan raised his glass.
"Before we celebrate," he began, smiling at the crowd, "there's something I need to say, something that's weighed heavily on me."
My stomach dropped.
He turned to the guests, his voice soft, almost trembling. "A few months ago, my firm faced an unfortunate financial issue.
Many of you heard rumors.
Tonight, I want to clear the air, and my conscience."
I felt my heart begin to pound.
He glanced toward me, just for a second, and in that look, I saw it. The same cruel satisfaction I'd seen my entire life. He continued, "The truth is, the issue wasn't entirely the company's fault.
It was a family matter.
A misunderstanding that involved someone I love deeply. My sister, Amara."
Gasps. Murmurs. My ears started ringing.
"She made some mistakes while handling my files," he went on, feigning sorrow. "But she's young, emotional. She didn't mean harm. We've forgiven her, and I hope everyone else can, too."
Laughter from the crowd. A few sympathetic nods.
My mother smiled tightly, pretending this was an act of grace.
I couldn't move. My skin burned. The room felt smaller with every breath. I finally found my voice.
"You're lying, Ethan." He turned to me, looking hurt, as if I were the one ruining the night. "Amara, please," he whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "don't make this harder than it already is." The whispers around us grew louder, pitying glances, disapproving eyes. I heard someone say, "Poor boy, protecting her like that." Mother stepped closer, her voice sharp as glass.
That's enough, Amora. You've caused enough embarrassment.
But I didn't do anything.
I cried. He used my name. He.
Before I could finish, she slapped me.
Hard. Right there, under the chandelier. The room went silent. My father lowered his gaze. No one moved. No one spoke.
Ethan's voice broke the silence, calm, commanding.
She's been under a lot of stress lately.
Please, forgive her.
I ran out.
The music started again behind me, as if nothing had happened. My own family, the people I'd bled for, cried for, had just erased me. Outside, I stood in the cold night air, shaking. The city lights blurred through my tears. For a long time, I couldn't even feel my hands. It wasn't just humiliation, it was betrayal that reached my bones. I sat on the curb, my mind spinning, until I noticed something. Ethan's laptop bag. He'd left it on the back seat of Mother's car, half open. I didn't think. I just took it. When I got home, I sat at my desk, heart racing, hands trembling. I opened it. Password protected, of course. But I'd seen him type it before. Wells Legacy 1.
The screen came to life. Emails. Transfers.
Screenshots. Hidden folders labeled Carter Deal and Private Account.
There it was, everything. The stolen funds, the fake accounts, the messages where he'd planned it all.
He hadn't just used me, he'd built his entire cover on my name. As I scrolled through the evidence, my tears stopped. The shaking faded. The humiliation that had crushed me hours ago began to harden into something else, something cold, deliberate, alive.
For the first time, I didn't feel weak. I felt aware.
He thought he'd destroyed me tonight, standing under those chandeliers. But he didn't realize that his biggest mistake wasn't using my name.
It was underestimating me.
I closed the laptop, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. The woman looking back wasn't broken anymore. She was waiting, patient, silent, certain. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. He wanted to save his reputation? I was going to make him watch it burn. I sat on the floor with Ethan's laptop across my knees and the city noise pressing against the windows like a witness. For the first time since the slap, my hands weren't shaking. The shame that had been my armor melted into a cold, steady clarity. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about making the truth so visible they could no longer pretend. First, I needed allies.
I called Clara.
I told her everything in one breath, the forged signatures, the transfers, the messages.
She drove over with 2 coffee cups and a look that said she'd always believed me.
Then I reached out to Dean, the only person in that house whose loyalty wasn't to a name but to facts and law. He didn't promise miracles.
He promised methods. We worked like surgeons.
Dean taught me how to preserve evidence, hash the files, create secure copies, timestamp everything. Clara dove into Ethan's social accounts, finding a pattern of transfers to shell accounts and nights he said he spent at the office but clearly didn't.
I learned to read ledgers like a map of lies.
Every document, every message was a thread. Pull the threads, and the whole thing unraveled.
But facts alone don't move people. They need to see it.
So we began to craft the story, not a rant, not a vendetta, but a clear, undeniable path from Ethan's secrets to the ruin they caused. I wanted the timeline, the proof, and the faces of those he'd used as cover. We recorded voice notes, saved screenshots, and annotated bank slips. Dean warned me about legal lines. Clara reminded me that this was about respect, not revenge for revenge's sake. There were risks. If I exposed him too soon, he'd bury the truth deeper. If I leaked it carelessly, they'd call me reckless. And the worst fear pulsed under every plan. What if no one believed me again? But every time I thought of backing down, I remembered the chandelier, the slap, the way my mother turned away. That memory turned fear into fuel. We decided on a public exposure that wouldn't leave room for excuses.
Not a whisper to the tabloids.
Not a private confrontation. Something undeniable. A controlled release of the evidence paired with a clear narration. My voice, the dates, the documents, so the story couldn't be twisted. Dean suggested a secure press drop and copies to the regulatory board overseeing Ethan's work. Clara wanted to confront Nora first, hand her the truth and watch the cracks appear. I wanted the family to see it before strangers did, to feel the same humiliation I felt, but this time with the truth on their plates. I rehearsed what I would say. I wrote lines that were calm, factual, and spare. I wanted no hysterics, only the steady voice of someone who had been silenced until she could not be. I practiced in front of the mirror, the steady breath, the measured words, the moment to press play. "Are you ready for this?"
Clara asked, eyes raw but sure.
"Yes," I answered, and the word felt like a promise. We built the presentation like a case, timeline, documents, screenshots, bank trails, a final montage that tied his private messages to the transfers. It was ruthless in its cleanliness, the kind of thing that leaves no room for plausible deniability. Each frame would shut down his lies, expose his secret accounts, and show how he'd used my name to cover his tracks. The plan was dangerous, intimate, and utterly personal. It would humiliate him in the only language he understood, proof. And it would force the family to reckon with what they'd chosen to protect. That night, I closed my laptop, feeling both smaller and stronger at once. The files were encrypted on 3 drives, copies with Dean, and a sealed packet ready for the press and the board. My pulse thrummed with an odd mix of dread and resolve. I walked to the window and looked down at the lights, the city oblivious, the family asleep. Tomorrow would be the reveal. Tomorrow I would decide whether to press play and end the silence. My phone buzzed with Dean's final message. "Everything's in place. One call from you, and it goes live."
I held the phone like it was a match. My thumb hovered over the screen.
The night of the truth came dressed as a celebration. The ballroom glittered again, chandeliers glowing, violins humming, the same stage that once held my humiliation. Ethan and Nora were hosting a follow-up engagement dinner, this time televised by their firm's PR partners to restore public image. I arrived uninvited, yet every step I took felt rehearsed by fate.
Mother's eyes widened when she saw me.
"You shouldn't be here," she hissed.
I smiled.
"Don't worry, Mother. I'm just here to watch." In my clutch bag was a small drive, everything, the forged transfers, the emails, the hidden accounts. Clara stood near the back, ready. Dean waited by the service door, his laptop synced to the ballroom projector.
The music faded. Ethan raised his glass.
"Family," he began, that same velvet tone dripping with false humility, "teaches us forgiveness.
Especially when mistakes have been made."
I walked toward him, calm as a shadow. "You're right, Ethan," I said. "Mistakes should be forgiven. But first, they should be seen." A murmur spread. Nora's smile faltered. The lights dimmed slightly, the cue. Behind him, the massive screen flickered to life. At first, confusion. Then gasps. Transaction logs. Bank transfers. His messages. My forged signature. The crowd's murmuring turned to disbelief. "What is this?" Ethan barked, spinning toward the screen. "It's the truth you buried under my name," I said. "The truth you made me pay for." He lunged toward the technician booth, but Dean had locked the controls. Every email, every document rolled in sequence, his lies stitched together like a confession. Mother clutched her pearls, whispering, "No, no, this can't be true." Nora turned pale. "You told me she hacked you," she said, stepping back from him. This is taken out of context." Ethan stammered. "She's manipulating." I cut him off. "Like you manipulated me? Like you made me the family shame so you could stay clean?" For once, he had no answer. The mighty Wells heir stood naked before his own reflection. Then, a voice from the back, Grandma Elsa's. Fragile but fierce. "Is it true, Ethan?" He tried to speak, but the screen displayed his last message to his partner in crime. "She'll take the blame. She always does." The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shouts, flashes of cameras. Nora tore off her engagement ring and threw it at his feet. "You destroyed her to protect yourself," she hissed. He turned to me, eyes wide, desperate. "Amara, please. You can't do this. You'll ruin everything." I stepped closer, my voice low. "You already did. I'm just showing everyone what you built." Security moved in as reporters swarmed the stage. Someone shouted, "Call the police." He tried to reach for me, but Clara intercepted, placing the drive in the officer's hand. "Evidence," she said simply. Ethan's mask cracked. "You think this makes you strong?" he spat, trembling. "You think they'll love you now?" "No," I whispered. "I don't need them to. I just need the truth to stand." They led him away, his voice echoing through the ballroom, a mixture of rage and disbelief. My mother collapsed into a chair, her world shattering in silence.
My father couldn't even look up.
I stood alone at the center of it all, not broken, not small, just still. The same chandeliers that once mocked me now glittered like a crown over my head. The reporter's microphone caught my final words. For years, they told me to stay silent for the sake of family. Tonight, I spoke, for the sake of truth. The applause didn't come. Just silence, deep, heavy, sacred. But in that silence, I felt something new, peace. And as Ethan's reflection disappeared behind the glass doors with the flashing red lights of the police cars outside, I realized his downfall wasn't my revenge. It was justice, delivered in the same room where my dignity had died. After the ballroom chaos faded and the police cars disappeared into the night, the air outside felt unnaturally still. The wind carried the faint echo of Ethan's protests, but even that sound seemed smaller now, like a storm dying out after tearing through everything in its path. For the first time in years, I walked home alone without fear of how it might look. No eyes watching, no whispers chasing. Just me, the woman they'd tried to erase, now walking through the ashes of their perfect image.
By morning, the headlines were everywhere.
Wells family scandal. Son accused of fraud, sister cleared. The article showed Ethan's picture beside mine, two faces from the same bloodline, one broken by deceit, the other rebuilt by truth.
I didn't feel proud. Just quiet. Peaceful. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It just stands where lies once lived. When I returned home, the house was heavy with silence. My father sat in the study, staring at the family portrait on the wall. He didn't look up as I entered.
My mother stood nearby, eyes swollen, still holding onto the fragments of the image she'd worshipped. Amora, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't know. I looked at her, not with hate, not even pity.
Just a calm kind of clarity.
You didn't want to know, I said softly. Truth was always there, it just didn't fit your picture. She started to cry, but I didn't stay to comfort her.
Some wounds have to breathe in silence.
In Grandma Elsa's room, I found her sitting by the window, rosary in hand. She looked at me for a long time, eyes heavy with both guilt and grace.
You've done what I never could, she murmured.
You chose dignity over silence.
I knelt beside her and took her hand. For once, she didn't pull away.
Later, I walked through the empty halls, passing the family photos, smiles, vacations, anniversaries, all moments built on image, not truth.
I paused at one picture of Ethan and me as children.
He was grinning, arm around my shoulder, before the world taught him that love could be a competition.
I didn't feel vengeance anymore. Only a quiet farewell.
A week later, I packed my things and moved into a small apartment overlooking the river. Clara helped me set up a corner studio for my art. Dean called with updates on the case, Ethan's assets frozen, trial pending, my name officially cleared. The world still gossiped, of course.
But gossip no longer had power over me. I'd lived through worse than words.
One evening, I stood by the window, brush in hand, painting the final strokes of a canvas titled Respect Restored. It showed a single figure walking away from a burning mansion, not in anger, but in peace. As I painted, I remembered Ethan's last words before the officers took him. You think they'll love you now? I smiled to myself. No, I whispered to the empty room, I just love myself enough now to not need them. That was the truth, the real victory. In the end, respect isn't about what people say when you enter a room. It's about what remains when they leave, your peace, your self-worth, your truth. My family's reputation shattered, but my dignity survived. And in that quiet aftermath, I finally understood. Some wars aren't won by shouting or revenge. They are won by standing tall in your truth, even when no one believes you. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes, it's the sound of justice finally breathing.